Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome. Unitarian Society of Minneapolis on this Sunday, November 26, 2023, a snowy morning here in Minneapolis. First Unitarian Society is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and our programming is on-site, live, online, live, and on demand 24/7. I'm David Breeden, I'm the Senior Minister, joined today by our Interim Minister of Whole Life Learning, J. Exodus Hooper. Yeah, our keyboardist, Amos Lucidi, is here today. Our music director, you're going to do something today, I think. Yeah, Mike Vasich is going to do something, so he's going to be up here sooner or later. And Allan Steinhauer is going to lead us in music. Thanks for joining in today. All right. Now, if everyone will look to your right or your left or both and say, I'm so glad you're here today.
Look,
I'm so glad you're here today.
I'm so glad. Come on, everybody. Yes. I'm in this space.
All right, yes, and we will continue this conversation through the day here. Welcome to this place where everyone is welcome, and this place is, we attempt love and justice. We attempt the highest hopes of humanity, and that's what one of the things we're going to be talking about today with spiritual generosity. Do we fail here often to live up to our ideals? Absolutely. But we always try again. We always try again to love and to live in peace and harmony and justice. We're people looking out for each other, looking out for other sentient beings, and looking out for our planet. Welcome to this place of love and justice where the sacred and the holy is created by us being together. Thanks so much for being here today.
Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here and playing a couple of pieces for you today. I tried to tie these pieces into the theme of generosity, and I am not sure I succeeded, but I tried. So the first piece that I'm going to play, it's a piece by a composer probably very well known, who is Franz Liszt. Now, something that sometimes is not often spoken about Franz Liszt is that actually he was a very, very, very generous person. I cannot imagine of a figure in the 19th century who was more influential to musicians and pianists. He was one of the greatest pedagogues for piano in the 19th century. It's interesting, almost any international pianist nowadays, his line of teachers and mentors can be traced directly to Franz Liszt. And he actually did much of this without any, at least any physical reward. He was truly, many times we think of him as the pop star of the 19th century, but he was truly a very, very, very generous person in sharing his knowledge of music and piano. So I'm going to be playing that, Consolation number 3 by him. After that, I will play Estrellita by Manuel Ponce, which is probably his most well-known piece. As you know, Ponce have played it before here. He's a Mexican composer. And it's a very cute and sweet song about, the text goes something along the lines of, little star, come down and let me know if, this person, it doesn't even refer to person, but it says like if, they love me or not. And yeah, it's quite a tender song. And the last piece that I will be playing, it's by Sergei Rachmaninov. It's an etude. And I chose this because I think that the sound that comes out of the piano is quite generous. But I will leave that up to you for decide.
Wow, absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. When we gather each week, we read one of the 8 UU principles, or one of the 4 aspirations of our society. Today, if you will repeat with me, our 4th aspiration: we aspire to support one another's journey and connection in the here and the now. Thank you. Take it away. It's gonna be fun.
Music. We've coming. We have our congregational song today.
There we go.
Allan is here to help sing.
Yay.
It's another one from the Revs singing collection. And even if it's not familiar, hopefully it will become so quickly. And please feel free to sing along as you are able to and interested in doing so. The text will be up on the screen here, and if you would like to stand as you sing, you are invited to do so. Thank you.
All right.
Check my mic.
Hey. Hello. I think it's up. Did I?
Hello, hello. Want to be the handheld?
I don't know. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
You can go that route. Check, check. Okay, bypass. Okay, there we go. All right. This works.
Take 2.
Take 2.
It's live music.
Progress, not perfection. It's so easy to dream of the days gone by, so hard to think of times to come. But the grace to accept every moment as a gift is a gift that is given to some. What can we do with our days but work and hope? Let your dreams bind your work to your play. What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you loved it away? Love till you loved it away. There are sorrows enough for the whole world to end. There are no guarantees but the grave. But this life that we live and the times left to spend are treasures too precious to save. What can we do with our days but work and hope? Let your dreams bind your work to your play. What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you loved it away? Love till you loved it away. As it was, so it is, as it is, shall it be. And it shall be while lips that kiss have breath. Many waters indeed only nurture love's seed, and its flower overcomes the power of death. What can you do with our days but work and hope? Let your dreams bind your work to your play. What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you loved it away? love till you loved it away.
All right.
Let us remain standing real fast. I just want to offer us, of course, what we always come here to do is have a covenant together as a community. So our congregational covenant reads as the following. You may read it with me. Love is the spirit of this place, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Please be seated. When we gather each week, we share some of the milestones and joys and sorrows of the human experience. We do this because we are a congregational humanist community, and we're here for each other, for our neighbors, our community, and for the world. We do this to keep in touch with our own humanity and to remind ourselves that focusing up in a moment of stillness is a very good thing to do with our minds. A joy today from Lansing, Michigan. FUS members Diane and Nick Rouse announced the birth of twin grandkids. Aowen Era Rouse-Christ and Ider Lachlan Rouse-Christ. So there you go. Joy in Michigan. And another joy, Levi Jerome Gleason was born on Thanksgiving Day to Sarah and Jake Gleason, the first grandson of Jeff and Ann Walker Langard. If Levi becomes a member of FUS, which we fully expect, he will be fourth generation FUS. So there you go. We have a tradition here. We also remember the suffering that is going on in our world today, and we thank those who work to ameliorate the suffering in our world. And we take a few moments now to think about those who are sharing compassion in our world.
Here's our wisdom story today. Many of you are probably familiar with, of course, Dr. King and his March on Washington. Many of you are probably familiar with the most infamous and probably famous speech of all, which is, "I have a dream." Some of you probably are very familiar with the fact that actually that dream that he spoke of kind of started off a little slow. And what does that mean for us? I want to offer this wisdom, though, because before the speech even was written, it was actually written 12 hours before the actual march. Because of this is actually because Dr. King had had several setbacks. He had already been in prison. He had dealt with further oppressions and obstructions towards his work, and political powers were not interested even in the march alone. while King was in prison, actually many folk had already just kind of forgotten about the speech. They had forgotten about the speech. And he was not the writer and the author of that speech. His colleague and a few others had compiled a few things to start us off with. Starting off with some Western framework of course, that I believe these truths to be self-evident and so on and so forth. And that was great, but that doesn't speak to community. It didn't speak to the dream. So where did the dream come from? I offer this because the dream didn't come out of just simply the prompting of a healthy writing. It didn't come because of the simple fact of everybody was there at the March on Washington and it was beautifully prepped. In the back was a woman who had just sang How I Got Over. Mahalia Jackson, the gospel singer, stands in the back while King is going through the formalities of the speech. And she yells out constantly where she can actually touch his ear with her voice and say, "Tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream." King is stuck on script. But Mahalia is not interested in the script. Mahalia is interested in how we getting over. And tell us about the dream. The dream is important because the dream is generative, as we will talk about today. She pours into him something where he was too weak to preach. She pours into him something that he didn't see for himself in the moment of sitting in prison. His vision was blurred, his dream was decaying, and in some way, you want me to tell you about the dream? In short, that constant rowling and prepping and moving that she does with her voice, that she sang, just as she also sang before she got up, was the same energy that Martin actually starts the sermon. I have a dream. And it is the most beautiful riff that moves the American heart. But it's all whispered from the artist who is generating the energy when someone is weak and discouraged. And so I offer that to you today as a wisdom for us to take with us as we think about how we pour into each other in moments of weakness, in moments where we're tired, in moments where things look glim and gloom. We have each other.
reading a poem called Small Kindnesses by Danusha Lamaris. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by. Or how strangers still say, "bless you," when someone sneezes, left over from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we're saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else helps you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire. Only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy? These fleeting temples we make together when we say, "Here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat." That's the point. And what we want to do today is think about spiritual generosity. And the last two lines of that poem, keeping in mind, fleeting temples we make together when we say, "Here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat." What if those are the true moments of sacredness? And as you know, I've been saying that for all fall. I've been saying we are creating the sacred together. I say that because that is part of the humanist belief system. Humanity creates the holy, the sacred, including all the holy books, sure, but the feeling of sacredness that we have within ourselves. So I want today to go to a slide and talk a minute about John Dewey. As you know, we come out of the John Dewey tradition of pragmatism. We're doing a constructivist way of doing our whole life education. And John Dewey said this: God equals the active relation between the ideal and the actual.
Teach.
Okay? So here's your Venn diagram. You got the actual, you got the ideal, and you got God. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this is neutral, isn't it? As I've too often said, everybody's God agrees with them politically. It's often unfortunate because my God wants, women controlled in bedroom and all. Yeah, my God says women. Yeah. Well, that's God. That's what we're arguing about, is the ideals. But let's go to the next slide. And we say human action, actually, then, for Dewey, is God, right? Human creativity, human action between the actual and the ideal is where we are. And what Dewey will say is, yeah, you can go right, you can go wrong here, but since we believe in democracy, we're going to talk it out a little bit. We're going to consider what this human action can do in the actual and the ideal. And we liberals are going to say, what do we need to do? We need to increase human flourishing. We need to build generosity into our climate, into the way that we act. And so John Dewey is often, he's a pivotal figure from the 1930s in that he said, okay, liberals, you can use the term God, go ahead. And then later he said, well, I think I made a mistake about that, because now all the liberals, I believe in God, but it's not the same God as the conservatives believe in. So where are you going with that? It becomes the question in terms of the spiritual generosity that we're talking about. Do we want to conserve, or do we want to progress out there in the way? Now, I say this because, you know what? This is actually quoted in a sermon that we're going to be looking at today at noon. Wendy Jerome, where are you? She's here somewhere, and she's going to be talking about a Carl Storm who was a senior minister here, and he actually quotes this particular bit from John Dewey as God being this active relation, and then he says, why do we bother? Why do we use this term if this is what we're talking about? Yes, please. And also, we have Jay here today. One of the things that we've been talking about is how do we begin talking about the many kinds of humanism? That's why also we'll have Anthony speaking a little bit later with an Afro-Caribbean way of looking at humanism, right? But yes, please, Jay, take it away.
I agree with you. I'm heard, right? Okay, there we go. I agree with you, and I think like it's interesting as you come from John Dewey. I immediately go to James Baldwin around his quote around if God had any validity at all, right? If the concept of God, and he does make that very clear, the concept of God has any validity at all, right? It should make us more loving, right? More freeing, right? So when we speak to this ability that Dewey is pointing out around human action as a concept, maybe, in a lot of our humanist spaces, I would agree that, God is not in the equation for most. As an individual, who even has explored work with Dr. James Cone of liberation theology, he points out in Spirituals and the Blues, in his book Spiritual and the Blues, he points out that even black seculars, particularly, it is not that they are secular by means of Western notion, right? But the process there is not just a getting rid of God in the words of what James Baldwin does. He actually pushes and says that it's the opportunity that some seculars actually just ignore God. Oftentimes, if I talk to my mother, who has a very close relationship, right, to her religion and her relationship with God, right, immediately I ask, well, does God have to be in the equation? Because it's not that I'm not interested in engaging her based off of her knowing, right? That's a formation of knowing for her. And I'm not going, and it's my humanist value to honor her epistemology, her understanding of how she has moved and survived in the world, okay? And maintain that integrity and then meet her and arrive with her in that journey and say, well, what part are you, right, in this equation, right? So if God is not there, I'm just want to ask further, who are you? And I think that is a very important call to about being generative, that when we ask, who are you? We are not only asking this from a space of actual kind of emptiness. We're asking you to flourish, as you said. So, I think that's, as we think about kind of this spiritual generosity, how we name spirituality is also not constituted on God.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's one of the central things that we humanists have I think, mistaken over time. Because as I've often said, African-American humanism and Euro-American humanism are not the same. They grew up in the same soil, but it's a birch tree and an elm tree or whatever, right? They grew up in the same soil of the United States. They used the same ideas, but they were going in very different places, going to very different places. The liberation that white humanists have had to have would be like being able to serve on a jury, which we couldn't do until the 1960s, for example. But those were always civil liberties, right? Civil liberties. It wasn't about being oppressed openly in the street, right? And that's the difference. And so I always say that African-American humanism is totally about liberation. And we have to, as white humanists, we have to reach toward that idea of liberation, I think. Because that's the answer for us, all of us in humanity, I think.
No, I mean, my thought is all the time. If my humanism is not, if anyone I work in these circles with, if I'm not attached to liberation, that's not humanism for me, right? And I find it to be very important that when my advisor during my PhD wrote a book on the African burial grounds in New York City, and she talks about spirituality, and she's kind of a naturalistic humanist, so her framing was very interesting. She frames spirituality and names some very important things as she's doing this research. She says that spirituality is a reclamation of time, space, and memory. Time, space, and memory, a reclamation. And it's very important because this aids us as humanists to understand the importance of our own agency, our capacity, and how we arrive. And what would it look like for most of us in this space not to only sit with the way that we, show up in space, but really arrive? And arrive in a way that allows for us to know who we are. And when we come into that space, we offer folk an opportunity to become, not belong, but become. Most of our congregational spaces are really still stuck, and a lot of our spaces that we want to hang in sit in a space of belonging. Right. But becoming is where the generative happens.
Right. Well, and one of the interesting things, we don't proselytize, we know that, but I was looking at why do some religious traditions proselytize? And the interesting thing is that the religions that proselytize are those that are the most difficult to believe in. So why do you get people out on the street proselytizing? Because when they get spit on, they believe in it more, right? And the more they get made fun of, they believe in it more. So here we sit. We're pretty convinced that we're right here. So we're going to go home and we're not worried about it. But folks, look around us, and America is often not agreeing with us. So to live as a liberal, both socially and religiously, whatever that means, that's not easy. But we are called to do it because our opponents are doing it very well. If we can go to a slide real fast here, I do want to share something. This is from the actual typescript of Carl Storm from the 1960s, and that's what we'll be looking at noon today. I want to share what he had to say about religion after he has quoted Dewey. I will read it so you don't have to read ahead. I know y'all, we can't hand you things because you're going to read it. I'll read it to you. Still, says Carl Storm, I would venture the remark that no one can give up religion itself. They can only give up certain religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. For religion is grounded today, as it always has been, in the unavoidable necessity of relating ourselves in some way to the universe and to the world, and of enlarging individual and social values. You see that? Connect to the world, increase individual and social values, the good things. To do so with intelligence and courage and dedicated commitment to the enrichment of life is of fundamental importance, and whether we are acknowledged to be religious is quite inconsequential. Mm-hmm. As I've said from up here a lot of times, I don't care if you think what you think religion is. It is a European invention. Europeans went around the world saying, "What's your religion?" "I ain't got one." "Well, then we've got a Catholicism just for you." Right?
Everybody gets Catholicism.
yeah. Y'all get over there, or we'll kill you. No. Religion is that which you live in as your highest belief system, right? Whatever you want to call it. And you can call it secular. I call mine secular most of the time because that's what it matches, secularity most of the time. But we have always always been accused of being irreligious, unreligious, heretics, but no, we are holding to the highest spiritual generosity of giving. That's what humanism is about.
You know, it's funny because I mean, John Dewey points to that as well. This idea of like when we talk about our humanism and we talk about, you know, being a religious humanist, it's, you know, the words and what they mean. This is why it's very important for us to have not just definitions but ethics, right? That our ethics help us clarify how we move and show and right be in our practice, because we don't always use this. We might use similar language, but it doesn't always come out in the same way. And so the ethicist is always engaging in a progressive practice of constructing and deconstructing. So it's not just a situated definition. So when we think about like Dewey's early work, we see that pragmaticism kind of taking place even with language, and how he talks about really the religious is the ideal, right? The value, right? Values over belief. So if you don't use the word belief, you use values. If you're not using the term, I have a religion, well, you have a congregation, you have a community, right? I'm a communal humanist. I am, right? Because some people are humanists and they're individualistic. Right. That can happen. And that's very real. And so how we offer people to practice with us is our ethic in being in right relationship and seeking right relationship, meaning an equitable one of understanding and compassion.
I want to end up by reading that poem to you again, and this time I have it on slides so you can follow along. And by the way, part of this belief here, you know, Jay is here this year helping us develop a curriculum for our K through 100-year-old group. And part of that is we are being very conscious of the fact that African-American humanism and Euro-American humanism are not the same thing. But we can be in the same room, and we do have the same goals. And white liberals, you need to know black people. get to know some black people, you know.
They were quite lovely.
Yeah, you know, it's like, but and that's what we're doing too, you know, because we can't sit around saying, oh, that's what the city needs to do if we don't have everyone's voice in this room.
That part.
And so that's what we're doing, is we're getting the secular humanist, religious humanist, congregational humanists in this building. Let me read that poem to you again. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by. Or how strangers will say, bless you, when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we're saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire, only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat. Thank you. And we'll sing together now.
This was written by Stephen F. Foster, by the way. It's an old song.
Please stand. Let's sing out.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all sup sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. While we seek mirth and beauty and music light and gay, there are frail forms fainting at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a pale, drooping maiden who toils her life away with a worn heart whose better days are o'er. Though her voice would be merry, 'tis sighing all the day. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more. Thank you.
All right, please be seated. Thank you. Thanks so much. We have a special treat for you now, a special offering. And you know, we don't come around with baskets these days, but I will explain how to do this in a few moments. But first, let's meet up with Anthony Cruz. Anthony is a member of First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, as you probably know. And Anthony, why don't you tell us more about yourself before we get to the ask?
University, where I develop meaningful programming and curate experiences that revitalize the practice of being human in this social and political context. I had the privilege of welcoming your interim Minister of Lifelong Education, Dr. J. Exodus Hooper, a few weeks ago to a one-of-a-kind course I'm teaching at Tufts, and basically really exploring the creating of liberatory futures through a humanist perspective. This course, among other offerings, have been possible through the generous support of humanist communities across the country. In the spirit of generosity to the present and future of humanism and free thinking, I have recently partnered with Evan Clark, who's the executive director of Atheists United, to launch this coming summer an inaugural retreat cohort style called Kindling the Humanist Spark, igniting a network of change makers that will model a humanism that is embodied, interconnected, and decolonial through accompaniment, mentorship, and ethic of care throughout their becoming within this emerging network. Lastly, I would like to say that this community over the past decade has been instrumental in my formation and development as a humanist professional and scholar, and for that I am deeply grateful. Thank you so much, FUS.
Anthony, do tell, what is the percentage of entering students at Tufts who say that they are secular, nuns, etc.? The percentage?
Yes, so according to statistics, it's ranging between 40 to 45%, at least in the past 3 or so years.
Yeah. So is this a fruitful vineyard to be picking grapes in? Yes, it is. Yeah, indeed, 45% of, and not only that, but you may not know that this is a little bit of history, and I'll get out of it quickly, but you know Harvard was the Unitarian school, right, and turned out Unitarian ministers. So the Trinitarians started Tufts, and Yale, that's another story, but they started Tufts in Boston. You know what? It then becomes a Universalist school as a Trinitarian, but it's time for the Unitarian humanists to take over. So I almost, Anthony, I almost shared some of your academic papers. Anthony is writing some incredibly intelligent, well-crafted essays about the Afro-Caribbean experience, about how the religions of the colonizers were used in Puerto Rico. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating stuff. But here's the ask for you. We're taking a special offering today, and no baskets are coming around, but if you will go to the Venko app online, or if you will stop off at our office and drop off a check, but the Venko app, and you can go to give, and when you get there, it's going to say, do you want to give to a special program, and everything that comes in today that is not specifically earmarked for a pledge, we will send it to this program, and keep Anthony preaching the good news out there in Boston. And hey, next time we send some students to Boston, Anthony, we're definitely going to want them to get a guided tour of downtown Boston in a secular humanist way. So thank you so much for appearing today. Please do remember this. We are not a hard sell people, but this week is Giving Thursday, I think it is, in Boston, and so we want to be able to send a check at that time. So thank you all for doing that. Thanks, Anthony. Keep up the good work. All right.
Thank you so much, FUS.
I'm not doing any serious scholarship in a second or third language as you are, so. Announcements. If you're in the building today, enjoy downstairs beautiful butter chicken with brown basmati rice or pestoed spaghetti squash. If you haven't had anything pestoed before, it's time. That's vegetarian. And then also broccoli mung bean salad, which is vegan. At noon today, yes, but is it religion? We're looking at a talk by Carl Storm from the 1960s with Reverend Wendy Jerome, a member of the congregation, that will be in the Chalice room downstairs. Also, be sure you're checking our media. Folks, this is a busy time of year. It's hard to keep up. It's hard for us to keep up with everything going on. Next week is a solstice storytelling workshop on Saturday, December the 2nd, 12:30. You definitely don't want to miss that if you're into storytelling. Check our social media or go online. And yes, there's lots going on. Be sure to sign up in order to keep up with everything that's going on at firstunitarian.org, and thank you very much. We will now extinguish our chalice. And if you will repeat with me, please, our extinguishing the chalice words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All of these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again. Take it away. All right. All right. Whoops. Keep tripping over that.
place. May we go and have a dream. May we go and have a vision. May you go and tell someone who you are. But most of all, when you go and tell them what you are becoming.
picture. I got to read the book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's just do it. Let's do a toss-up.
Thank you, family.